So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I mean, I saw the introduction in the promo, and I thought, good grief, I have to live up to that. But so I'll do my best. But just to give you a little bit of background is my first inspiration for me was my great-grandmother, a Cree medicine woman. And she was definitely a freedom fighter, and she loved people. She welcomed everyone, no matter race, color, creed, to her place. She had a place in Alberta. It was on the way to the gold rush, it was during the gold rush period. And they would stop at her place. She would make sure they had food, blankets, whatever, because she was very good at finding things. And she even lent two fellows who were coming through. They did not have the proper equipment, and they didn't even have a horse. So she lent them 2 horses. They came back 3 years later, gave her back the horses and some money. Anyway, but she was put in a residential school where she was forbidden to practice her healing arts. But that didn't deter her, because as soon as she left school, of course, she became one of the most well sought after medicine women for delivering babies and healing, because that's what she liked to do. She liked to help. So she welcomed even Louis Riel, because he came through also. And he's one of my heroes. I quite like this man. He's quite it's interesting to read about him, and I wish he was around here today sometimes, Anyway, I was raised on a farm. I drove the tractor by the time I was 6. I wasn't very big, but I drove that tractor, I was Dad's helper in the field. I was his helper in the shop, because he was also a carpenter. And I looked after my little sisters and my brother, and I loved to cook. So I cooked for them too. And as soon as I could put a chair by the stove and cook, that's what I did. So I started off with having a horse to ride when I was little. And when Dad sold the horse, now I'm finding, well, I have nothing to ride. So I had this calf that it was my pet. So I decided I would train her to let me ride her. Well, not easy. Have you ever tried sitting on a cow and they're bucking you? There's nothing to hold on to. So I would just go flying regularly, till finally she decided it was okay for me to ride her. And after that, my cousins who came from the great city of Edmonton would have to, of course, have a ride on my cow, Then after that, I couldn't go anywhere with her, though. I mean, just, kind of looked good, but didn't go very far. Then I graduated from that to a motorbike that my dad built in 1950, and I inherited it because I was the type that, if I could ride something, drive something, I did it. And he made it with Model T wheels, combine parts, and a 5-horsepower motor, and, I started with a rope, and away I'd go. But it had brakes, it had everything, I was in business. But I was a daredevil a little bit too, because I had a few close calls, but I think I kept my guardian angels very, very busy. And I've got a few scars with that bike, but people would gather around and see if the thing worked, because it really didn't look like it should. But it did. So then I graduated from all of that to the study of Dianetics and Scientology. And that was in the late 60s. And I worked for the church in various capacities since 1974. Now I'm the lead spokesperson of a very controversial religion. Yep. And I have been since the year 1978. I was spokesperson from 78 to 83. And again, I transferred to Toronto in the year 2000 and became the spokesperson for Canada. And then, but the 70s and 80s were very interesting years, because that was the years of deprogramming, and some of you might remember that. Yeah. So I helped a lot of people those years, because I was on the list of names to call if they had any difficulties in that area. Does anybody have questions on deprogramming if you don't know what it is, or you don't know what it is? Oh, well, yeah, okay. I'll tell you, because they just simply kidnapped you. If somebody in your family decided you shouldn't belong to that particular group, you would get kidnapped. People would be paid to kidnap you and, deprive you from sleep and food. And you know, you were watched and they kept hammering at you. That was their deprogramming, right? So I didn't agree with that. So I helped as many as I could. I have 3 sons, 3 daughters, in-laws, and 3 grandkids. So now you have who I am. And I'm actually very glad to be here. Okay.
We're glad to have you.
Okay, Peter.
And Reverend Shank, now that I know you're an old biker, I have a lot more respect for you.
Thank you. I just couldn't quite get to the point where I had those biker jackets, though.
I'll help you out.
You'll help me
I've
out?
got
Okay.
connection.
Oh, goody. I can become a real... No. Anyway, so today I just want to talk to you and let you in on a few secrets, especially the part about the controversy, which I will develop throughout my talk here. Mankind as a whole has been and is religious, regardless of how his beliefs in spiritual being manifests itself. Civilization in large part exists because of man's belief in spirituality and his aspirations to something higher than this current existence. I want to thank you, each and every one of you, from the bottom of my heart, for keeping religious freedom, the torch of religious freedom, alive. Because without religious freedom, we really have nothing. And it's not a good, we don't want to even go there. Witness Nazi Germany, and I don't think I need to go further. All right? Today, one need open a newspaper or flip on the local newscast to be hit with a seemingly endless barrage of bad news about society. The drug problem, rising crime, scandal, heartbreak, the moral crises, etc. These issues are not new news. The problems we face are problems that L. Ron Hubbard was very aware of and which led him to find solutions to assist people around the world to fight illiteracy, immorality, criminality, drug abuse, human rights violations, and man's inhumanity to man. There are two ideas at place on Mother Earth. One, it's all of us here, you know, the belief in the spiritual nature of man. All that is spiritual, you know, you're spiritual in nature. Everything you do, you create, you know. You put beauty there. You have a nice home. All that is life. Human rights for all. A drug-free world. Freedom to choose. Real help. Those are very controversial things. I hope you realize that. Then there's the other side. Materialism. Man is an animal without a soul. The study and treatment of the brain. Total control of every man, woman, and child. The use of drugs to control. The dark side. So those are the two that are at play. Okay? Mr. Hubbard saw a need to protect the most vulnerable, those labeled mentally ill, and to stop psychiatry encroaching into society. In 1969, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights was established. With the help of Dr. Thomas Zaz, a famous psychiatrist, who exposed the fraudulent practices of psychiatry. So he too was controversial. He told the truth. All right, so the controversy on the church really started when Mr. Hubbard first announced Dianetics as a new science of the mind to the Psychiatric Association. And he even offered to retrain their psychs. But they took this as a threat to their well-financed monopoly. Because then what would happen to their monopoly? What would happen to their funding if it was found that there is a science of the mind that actually works that anybody can use? That was like very scary to them. So that's when we started getting our problems, difficulties, or whatever from that point forward. They saw it as something that would replace all the drugging that they do. And there's a lot of money in drugging people, you know. And ECT and the whole, all of it. So, but if this sounds bleak, knowing what is going on, we can, as a united front, help each other and take back Mother Earth and its children. We have provided tools that are being used in schools by police officers, by community leaders, that are available for anyone who wants to teach human rights, to teach the truth about drugs, to teach how to learn, the literacy program. This is available to anyone. It's non-religious, so it can be used by anyone. And we have a new church now in Cambridge, Ontario, and we had a drug education open house one day, and we had a lot of teachers and a lot of educators and community leaders come to that. 2 of them were teachers, and they ran around the place, because they'd heard that we're, secret and whatnot, whatever else the media decides to say. But they wanted to know what Scientology is. And then they came down after they toured everything and went through the whole place, came back and said, well, what is Scientology? We want to know, right? So we let them in on the secret. Yes, they can know. They can find out about Scientology, which they're doing now. Anyway, and then 3 police officers also came, and they said, does everybody know that they can come in here and find out about Scientology? As we're trying to tell them, they're welcome, right? Anyway, so I invite you to help yourself to any of our teaching tools, and together we can create a golden dawn here on earth. And Ron Hubbard says, I'll give you a quote from Ron Hubbard, "A civilization without insanity, without criminals, and without war, where the able can prosper and honest beings can have rights, and where man is free to rise to greater heights, are the aims of Scientology." But I think they're your aims too. And I'm so grateful to have you, and I'm grateful to what you do, and let's keep the spirit alive and well. Thank you very much for having me.